Hi, Corine. Welcome to Multispective. I am so excited to have you on air with us.
It's great to be here. It's great to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Yeah, you have a really interesting story. I think it's a topic that people are talking about now more than ever. So, where does it all begin for you?
Girl, I don't even know. It was before I was born, clearly, so I have no idea. But when I realized it, and the it we're talking about is getting involved with a narcissist, of course, he will not say that. As we say in the Caribbean, a fisherman never says his fish rotten. When a fisherman selling you a fish, he will never say rotten
Yeah,
fish for
yeah,
sale. He will
exactly.
never, he will never do that.
Yeah.
So, people will not admit and they would actually project. That's I'm sure people have heard the term projection. They will actually project it onto you and say, you are the narcissist and convince you in your state that you are actually the one at fault. You are the one that's unhealthy. I was told that I need help. And I was like, I know I ain't crazy. I know I ain't crazy. I mean, I'm
Right.
crazy, but I ain't
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
Right? And they will convince you of these things. And when I say they represent your spouse, um, your husband, your guy who you're with, the woman who you're with, because it's not attached or it doesn't discriminate with a particular gender or sex. It could be a mother, it could be a father, it could be a friend. It could be a boss at work, it could be a colleague at work, because it has happened to me, not just in a personal, intimate relationship. What I have discovered to help somebody to learn about it, and we can't do all the learnings in this time, but I hope to leave people with some sort of tips or some sort of lessons from my experience, is that they pick up something about you. And what that something is, I have discovered from my own experience, is that you have a wound. And if you don't take care of that, it can get infected. Bacteria could crawl in there, germs, all kind of creepy crawly things. And it gets worse. It gets, as I said, infected. And that's what they are. They infect you because you have an open wound that you haven't taken care of. Now, what that wound is something from your childhood that you haven't discovered yet. And how I know that you haven't discovered it yet is because there's a repetitious cycle, it's a washing machine cycle you're in. You realize I'm in the same relationship, but the guy looks different or the woman looks different, but it's the same thing happening over and over. You might go at a particular workplace and you find not everybody's going to treat you like that, but there are certain people that you find yourself interacting with, and you're like, what is going on here? There is something that they're picking up about you or in you, and they decide, narcissist, they decide that they are going to manipulate and take advantage of that. Just like a germ or a bacteria, it sees a host, you, and it's going to infiltrate that and do all its lovely magic and take housing, build a whole condominium and start to do things. Eventually, after a while, just like with that wound, when it becomes infected, you start to have symptoms. You start to get a little shaky, shivery, things start happening to you. And that is what started happening to me. You start to question.
So would you
You
say
know,
that this kind of like your very first narcissistic experience was with a spouse, with a partner, or was it kind
yeah.
of, does it go back before that even?
No, no, no. The first time I recognized it, and notice I said recognize it. It's not that, you see, because you don't know what you don't know. When I recognized it was when I came out of that 27-year relationship. I wasn't married, 27 years with 2 children, 2 boys. I didn't know. It was when I came out of that 27-year relationship. I don't know. This is why I tell you I blame God for it. All of a sudden, I am just on my laptop and I think, I don't know, something just showed up. And I read it. And Jenica, to this day, I couldn't pass the first paragraph of that article. The first paragraph, I don't even think I read the first paragraph. The first few lines was my life. I saw things in the first few lines and I was literally bawling. It was like if it was living with me, the words in that article was living with me in the
Yeah.
house with the person I was with.
Yeah.
It was saying the things
So
that was
just
happening
for
in my life.
context, so our listeners can understand, because I have done episodes before of people who've experienced living with or being very close to someone with narcissism, but that the experience has always been somewhat different for different people.
I remember having a situation in the house with him, and it never leaves me. He was talking to me, and he was on the side, right on the side of me, and I was close enough to see him, from my peripheral view. And he said something to me. I responded, and I heard the Spirit said to me, "Watch and listen." Like when you watch in a slow motion in a movie, everything just goes slow. So it was like everything just going slow. So he was passing by me after he said what he said, and I saw the smirk on his face. It was a smirk. It was like, I got you. A sort of satisfaction, sort of a smirk. And it resonated somehow with me. And when I saw the article, and I was many years ago, I remember that article, I think, saying something about they have this smirk. It's only God that got me out of this, because you see, when you don't have a relationship spiritually, then the flesh, the people in your life will take over. But you have to have that strength within you to know what is the truth from what isn't.
Right.
And so you have to, and why am I saying that is about your intuition. Your intuition never, Jenica, and anybody listen to this, never, and I'm sure people know this, never guides you wrong. And when my intuition, or I call it the Spirit, said to me, watch, and I saw it on the side, I was like, I felt something churn inside of me.
Right.
I have to find that article. I'm sure it was something, it's either somebody sent me something or I found it, or it was I don't know.
Yeah.
But I have to somehow find it. It's hard to really pin down a particular instance. There were just a number of instances.
Yeah.
But it was, I don't even blame him. I don't, and this is a lesson I want to get across to your listeners. We tend to focus on the narcissist. You see, when you do that, you're giving them more power. You're making them feel that they're all that in a bag of chips plus the factory, which is what I say. But it is not that. You have to focus on you and healing that wound. You have to focus on why is it that they picked you, because they selected you. You were chosen, because there are many other people out there, but they picked you. Why? Okay? If you don't work on you, you're going to keep attracting the same type of people. They will take a different shape, form, color, size, but it's the same thing. So I want people to take away from this, the focus is on you. Yes, we know that people do your things, whatever, but why? Why are they doing it? Put a stop to it by working on yourself. Because you can't change them. No matter how you quarrel, fight, cuss, whatever, you cannot change them. The only person who you have control over is you. So take that amount of energy that you're putting and giving to them as if they're all that, because they don't deserve any of it, and turn it right back on you. Because they don't have any remorse, they have no feelings, they're walking corpse. When you were sleeping and having sex with them, you were sleeping with a corpse. I'm telling you, that's straight what it is. You will sleep, and you know this. And I will tell you how you know this. And this is getting raw here. When you're making love to them, they know how to act. But they don't consider you and your needs and your desires and your feelings. It's not reciprocal. It's all about them. Because they need it. They need it. So you really have been involved with a corpse. Thriller, Michael Jackson, the video Thriller. You really have been involved with a corpse. And that might sound sad or raw, but I'm telling you it's the truth. Because they have no remorse. They have no feeling. You might think, but it's a human being and it's blood running through their veins. Yes, but no. They have
So can
none.
you tell me a time where you felt like dismissed, or you felt like you were made to feel unimportant, or where you were feeling triggered, where on reflection you kind of realized actually that was an act of narcissism in a way, that was an act of
I
what?
never knew what it was. Jenica, I never knew what it was. So I cannot say during the 27 years that I knew it was a narcissist. I did not know. It was after I came out, the 27-year relationship, I realized. Because when you're in it, you don't know. The only way you would know is if somebody brings it to your attention and they keep you isolated. I was living in Jamaica at the time, and they keep you isolated. And that's one of the things, because if somebody ever tells you or triggers or heightens your awareness, it's a goner. I probably would not have stayed the 27 years if somebody or something had
Right.
come to my attention. So I
But
never knew.
do you recall feeling unhappy when you were
Of
in the relationship?
course, you know you're unhappy. You know there's no growth. You know everything you try to do. Let's say I wanted to do something for my own personal development. I was doing a course and I was put down. I wasn't working at the time. Well, I was working for a particular period of time, and then, well, when we had kids, and he said, Corine, I think it's best if you stay at home, because I prefer the mother of my kids to be home as opposed to a stranger, and he will take care of everything. That's what he said to me. And I said to myself, wow, isn't that love? He appreciates me being there with the kids, and yeah, it making sense. I mean, this is the man in your life, the father of your kids, you're living with him. It makes sense, Jenica. Yeah. And he says he will take care, because he was in a solid job, good paying job and everything. And yeah, I was already dealing with all the stuff. And of course, any man would feel safer knowing that the mother of his children is with the kids in the house. So I said, okay. No, sweetie, don't be fooled. That was a strategic move for me to be dependent on him for the rest of my life, to be crippled. And at the time, I wasn't thinking that. And when you hear other women's stories, you will hear the same thing. You give up your job, you give up everything, and you end up not being able, or not thinking that you could leave when you really think you want to, because you're like, what am I going to do? Where am I going to go? I don't have any money. I have to ask him for money.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
a strategic move. So don't ever leave your job no matter what he says. Don't give up anything that you have been doing and enjoying no matter what he or she says. Don't. It is a strategic move. And don't ever allow your mind to tell you, oh, isn't that sweet? He loves me or she loves. No. Because anybody who truly loves you will want you to continue doing the things you enjoy, and will support you in uplifting you and getting you to do even more and challenging yourself. But instead, it was the other way around, under the guise of care and love and concern, when there is no such thing. So when it was time for me to leave, or when I felt it was time for me to leave and I had enough, of course I went through that trauma of, where am I going to go? What am I going to do? And then when I sat down, because I was still making money online, right? I was still doing that. I realized I was paying for us to travel, because I'm not a person who would just sit down and twiddle my thumbs and take care of children. They go to school during the day. I could be doing something. So I found online things to do. And I was still covering the cable and the phone and stuff like that. So I was paying, so that even though I was made to feel and told other people I wasn't doing crap in the house, I wasn't contributing, and I realized I was paying for travel. I was still traveling. I was covering things in the home. The kids were still going to school. We were still paying the school fees, I was like, but Corine, if you could do that, then you could manage. It mightn't be at the best. You'll have to probably start over, but you're not starting from ground zero. And then lucky for me, I'm Trinidadian. I had my other country to come home to, even though I would have to come back to my mother's house, which is not a good thing as an adult. But you do what you have to do until you could scrape yourself back up and build back up. So you have to get a little 2 doses or 10 doses of humility, swallow your little pride if you have any of it after dealing with that sort of relationship, and build yourself back up. But I can promise anyone listening to this, you will build yourself back up. All you need is to believe and have the will. And listen, angels are amongst us. Angels are amongst us. And I know there are things that some people will have to do to make it. There's no judgment here, at least from me, right? Do what you need to do to survive for another day. Once it is legal, once it is safe, and it doesn't put you in harm or anybody else in harm. So you can make it.
Yeah. At what point did you kind of start making your boundaries very clear with him? At what point did you start to kind of like stand up for yourself a little bit more? Or did you kind of, was it just like, I read that article and boom, like I went from being an all-giving wife partner to just leaving, like bam, one day?
Remember, the article came after I left. So
Okay.
I couldn't apply that before, right? But
Right.
there were instances where I put my foot down on certain things, and I realized when I look back now, I was a bit stronger earlier in the relationship and then got weak over time. And then got to reclaim myself a little bit after some years. So when I look back, I'm like, at what point, and people have asked me this, at what point did it change, did it switch? And I really can't say. It is a subtle move, and I use the example of the frog in the water. The frog in the water, you're turning up the heat under him, and he doesn't know that it's getting hot and he's cooking and he's dying in there. But he's just gotten so used to the temperature because it's been a slow turn of the heat. He doesn't tell the difference, and that is what they do. It's very insidious. You know, you have no idea that little by little is happening. So when you ask somebody who has been in that type of relationship, when did it, they can't say. At least for me, I can't say. All I remember is that I was stronger in the earlies and something happened over time. And then I reclaim myself. So there's a little flicker of light that's in you that remains there, even though it's not out. It's not out. It's only out if you allow it to be out. And that flicker is what, that flame started to get a little bit brighter. A little bit brighter, a little bit brighter. And things that I did was like when I, you know, he would come home and he would make statements like, what he did, you know, like, I keep a roof over your head and I you know, lucky for you, whatever. You know, I'm like, hold on, I don't walk about as the woman here. I cook the food.
Yeah.
I even said to him, I said, you need a medal for that or something? I don't know. You know, I just couldn't get it. You know, some things were just not connecting. Nobody's supposed to boast or come around or walk into the house boasting about what they did, which is what you're supposed to do. You're the man in the house.
Yeah.
You're supposed to provide. Nobody comes, I'm providing for you, and I'm this, and I'm taking care of the kids, I'm making sure everybody go to school. I'm like, shocker, that's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
Do
Yeah.
you need a medal? And I said it to him. I said, you sound like any damn. And all what I'm saying to you, Jenica, is what I have read or seen in a video as a result of educating myself coming out of the relationship. People have said these things.
Yeah.
They will boast about things that they're supposed to be doing or they should be doing. That's your role, that's your responsibility. And you're like, you need a medal?
Yeah.
You need a trophy?
Can you talk to me a little bit about the role of fear in this relationship? And I say fear because would you say that fear played a part in you kind of giving into a lot of things for him? Would you say fear was the reason why you didn't want to leave or you didn't leave that relationship for so long? And is that a common thing that narcissists tend to do, like instill fear in their target person?
Fear is the root of all the things that manifest itself. It is the root. If you keep asking why, it's fear. And fear manifests itself in your lack of self-worth. If you ask somebody, do you love yourself? You'll say, of course I do. But watch their actions. It doesn't match. Because if you love yourself, you will not allow somebody to do you those type of things. You will not allow somebody to treat you the way they treat you or talk to you the way they talk to you. So clearly you don't love yourself. And I had to come to that realization, you know. Yes, they use fear, and they use fear because they realize that you don't love yourself. So yes, they are going to use fear, and fear is is manipulation. Fear is control. Fear is giving you anxiety. Fear is making you question. Fear is making you self-doubt. Fear is making you not care for yourself like you used to. So you used to go and do your pedicures, manicures, do your hair, treat yourself well, go shopping. You're not feeling to get up out of bed. Little things, you know, and you notice the change. So yes, fear is a manipulative tool, strategy, tactic that they use. And like I said, it manifests itself in all different ways. He use it even for the kids. They could
So I
never
was
do
actually going to
anything.
ask you this next.
Yeah,
Like, what
he
was the
did it with
role
the
of your
kids.
kids? How did it
It
affect
was
your kids?
always, it was always fear-based. They could never do enough. You know, no matter what even if they excelled, it was never good enough. Not that he excelled, but they never did, they never did enough. They would get A's or whatever it is. It was never enough.
So does he have a relationship with the kids right now?
Well, he took them over.
Okay. Can you walk me through what
He
happened
took
there?
them over and converted them over on his side. And but again, I don't blame him because my son is going to be 30 this year, and the youngest is going to be 22. So they're not babies. The eldest, well, he's here with me in Trinidad now, and he just stopped talking to me.
Okay.
Have nothing to do with me. So I have turned into the evil witch. As we say in the Caribbean or in Trinidad, you make children, but you can't make their mind. You know, they have a choice. And if they choose to go that route, that's up to them. You know, we each have to live our lives. But
May I know,
youngest-
like, what was the reason for why? Is it because there was a narrative that your partner
I
was
cannot explain, Jenica, I cannot explain what a narcissist mind does. It's twisted. I cannot explain it. Right? The fact that it's twisted and you could, as a man, I would just put it in this way. Women give birth to children, not the man. And a man, knowing that, should never turn their children against the mother. Under no circumstance, I don't care if she's a drug dealer, a prostitute, I don't care what she is. He must never do that. Because he, as a man, came from a woman. We all came from a woman. And it is just not right. So just that in itself, to stop the mother of your children from having a relationship just because the mother decides she doesn't want to have anything to do with you, you're selling a narrative that they probably buy into. I don't know, whatever, that I have abandoned them, that I am just the worst on this planet. And just the fact that somebody could do that is evidence, Jenica, to me, that something is definitely wrong with that individual. Because I would never, if it's in reverse, I would never keep my children away from their father. But the decisions I had to take as a result of that is to safeguard me, or else I would be pulled in to the situation again. You see, what they don't realize, but what I know, is that they are being used as pawns, you know, like a chessboard. They are being used as pawns, but they don't know that. I do. Okay? They are being moved along the chessboard for his purpose. He doesn't love them. He has no interest in them except to be used as pawns. I see that, they don't see that. That's their choice not to see it. And you see, as a mother and as a parent, one of the things that we should never do is bad talk the other parent. No matter how bad or whatever you may think they are, you must never bad talk the other parent.
Yeah.
And I was at a place back in the day where I used to try to tell my kids about their father. And I came up against resistance because, you know, in their head, that's my father. That's my father. And I'm not bad talking him, you know. I'm talking things that they know, things that they experience. But in their mind, that's my father. If it was reversed, that's my mother. You know, so you never do it. And all these things are evidence of the manipulation and control. So much so that he comes to Trinidad, right? The father comes to Trinidad with my youngest son, because remember the eldest is back here now, with my youngest son, stays at my mother's house, and I'm not allowed to be at my mother's house.
And how does your mom allow that? How does your mom
But
say
she
okay?
encourages it. The first time it happened years ago, and I was such in a desperate place to see my youngest son at the time. Can you imagine when a mother wants to just see her son? You give in to certain things. You get a little time because I don't see my son, you know. I don't feel him. I don't see him. Right? And so the first year she got away and I told her, don't make it happen again. She said, Corine, you know it wouldn't happen again. But every year since that, she makes it happen. She allows it. She allows it and she encourages him and they plan. She and my children's father, they plan.
Wow, that's really difficult to have to you know.
Yeah. So when my son comes here, he's just a few miles from me. I don't get to see him.
What about your oldest son? You mentioned that he is in the same city as you.
He's in the same house, yeah. He stays with my mother too. He lives there with my mother, yeah. He's there living
So
there.
when you go there to visit your mom, do you see him? I do not
go. If I as your mom keep doing this to you, having your ex, who I know has been abusive to you, has done things to you, and the children, and I keep having the man at my house and tell you, stay out of my house, threaten you to call the police if you don't get out of her house. What is there to mend, Jenica? What is there to discuss, Jenica? She made a choice as to who she wants. You know, I keep bringing things back to relationships again. You know, when a woman is interested in a guy, but he clearly isn't interested in her, and you keep running after him and doing everything to get his attention, but he doesn't have an interest in you, that he reach a point of embarrassing you. You must recognize when somebody's telling you something. How much, at what point of the abuse, how much of it do you need to get and take for you to realize, stop?
That's true.
How much? I have done it for years, and I didn't realize that I was, that even the home I was brought up in was narcissistic. It was in my understanding of narcissism, I again came upon a video. I tell you, when God takes you down a path, he puts things in, you just start seeing things. You're not even asking for it, you're not searching, but it just shows. And I saw a video about your mother being a narcissist, you know. That was not the title, but that is what it was. And everything that was shared in that video was exactly my mother.
Yeah.
I had to step away from watching and reading because that bowled me. I couldn't believe it. And they said that, and it was, my mother for me could be a father for somebody, but most of the times it's normally a mother, right? What they said is for you to get involved with a narcissist, or for you to attract that, is because you were raised by one.
Right.
And here's the connection. Familiarity. When you grow up in a home, father and mother and you, right? They are your only examples as to what you should go towards. That is normal for you. Which is why people end up in certain relationships, because when they see these things, it's normal. As opposed to somebody else who grew up in a very healthy home that knows, why are you moving towards that all the time? That's not normal. Why are you accepting the crap? It's because it's normal. They recognize it and it's familiar. So I didn't know that until as I said, I did the work, continue to still do the work, and realize that these things that attract me, that even now, it would still be attractive to me. But when I see it now, I'm like, I'm getting these feelings. Oh yeah, that I love that. I say to myself, stop. That's not for you, Corine. Go the other way. No matter how yummy the guy looks, no matter what, and they do look yummy, Jenica. They do look yummy.
Yeah.
They pull you in, but you
So-
have to walk away.
What are those signs now that you're looking for, or that you are very hyper aware of when you're going into
Like that.
a
Hyper
relationship?
aware.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard to tell because right now, what I do is listen to my intuition. You know, when I hear ding, 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 something doesn't feel right, I move away. So it's hard to tell.
Right.
I look beyond the physical because guys look real yummy out here. They look real yummy. And I have to go past that. So for me, I mean, I can't say exactly what I'm looking for, but you're looking for that person whose actions, and that's where you could tell a distinction, the actions over the words. People could tell you anything, but your actions must be consistent with your words. That is a fail-safe approach plus your intuition. Somebody can say, I'm going to take you out. Like this is what used to happen to in my relationship. We're going to go out. And it never happens. And they have you wanting and waiting and anticipating. Or you might even start to go out. And then you say something, going in the car, which is a situation that happened. And they get vexed. But there's no reason for them to be upset. They're just looking for a reason to turn back the car and take you back home. So it's like to blame you. You are the reason why we're not going anywhere. Because
Right.
everything is as a result of you. So you might get dressed, looking all nice and sweet. You're going in the car and they bring up something and you say something and they turn. Next thing you know, it's back home, your clothes turn off, and it's you. We can't go nowhere. This is how you behave every time I try to take you out. So the promises that are unkept. We will go shopping. We will never happen. You will sit and wait. And that's the thing. Never sit and wait on somebody to give you something that you deserve. Which is why you must not leave your job. If you want something, get it your damn self. You want a ring? You want that red bottom shoes? Get it. You want to eat that ice cream? Get it. Because from the time you become dependent on that person to take you out, to buy you those red bottoms, to whatever, you're going to be sitting there waiting forever. And they will know that you want it and use that to turn it right back against you. To say what I'm looking for, I don't really state it because it's not like a list. I have to be in your space, your conversations. There are little things for me depending on how you speak. If I find you like hot off the wire, I'm like, what? We can't relax, And there are times I could be very tense too. But I'm tense maybe too because of something that may trigger me,
Yeah.
Or because because if I hear the familiar words, what I've recognized is all of them have the same language. They went to the same school, they sat in the same seat, they had the same teacher, they read the same books, they did the same courses. It's a playbook. It's a playbook. And that was one of the shocking things to me when I started to educate myself about it. I'm realizing, wait a minute, everything other people are saying is the same thing. It's a playbook. It might come and shape in a different form, but it's the same thing. The leaving of the job, they say, making those promises. Some people I even say, they were even involved with people who are doctors. They tend to have very high type of jobs and, holding certain leadership positions. They love that because it's all part of feeding their ego. And I remember reading somebody where they were involved with a doctor and she was sick. She was sick and he never even brought her any medication or cared for her. And he's a doctor.
Yeah.
But the thing about it is really not to put the focus on them. You recognize it, you know the signs, and how you would know, follow your gut. You see that gut, 𝗔𝗯cie𝘂𝘁𝗃, it never guides you wrong. You know, but what happens, you make the excuses because you feel you need somebody in your life. There's a hole, there's a wound that you want to fill. And you're looking for that. And I was at a very young age. I was at university when I met him. and everybody was having a boyfriend. And you know, when you're at that age, you know, you're like, oh, everybody has a boyfriend, so you feel, well, you have to fit in with things. Well, my darling, what they say, age bring reason. There comes a point where you realize, you know, you don't need anybody else to define you. Nothing else defines you. No job, no money, no status, no man, no nothing. Not even your name, not even the school you went to, nothing. You define you. The only thing you have is your name. And you could change that too if you don't like it. You know, everything is changeable. Everything is changeable. Right? And you could decide who you want to be, where you want to be, how much you want to be, how frequent you want to be, and with who you want to frequent or whatever with. You know, but nobody else should be given that permission or allowed or given that authority or feel they have that power to turn you, what they call it, Play-Doh, take you and mix you with the red and the green and twist you around and form you into all sorts of things, you know. Yeah. So we have to work on ourselves. We have to recognize these things within ourselves so that persons can come in like a bacteria and infiltrate that wound and manipulate and control us and make us, turn us into something that we can't recognize in the mirror anymore, because I was losing myself. I didn't know who I was. The person that I am that you're looking at today, I'm telling you, is prettier than the person that you saw, that you would have seen years ago. This is why I say to myself, I'm so cute, you know, because I am. I didn't recognize my cuteness before. I didn't see all of that because I was made to see and feel ugly.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
It's a slow, the frog process. That heat, that insidious thing, is a slow process, and you don't realize you're losing yourself. Hold on to that flicker of light that's in you.
Yeah, I love that. Corine, last final plugins. I would like you to share your podcast with us and the work that you're doing as well before we end the podcast.
Sure. Between the Lines, isn't that a very apt?
I love that line. I love that. Yeah, it's such a nice name.
Yeah, that came to me many years ago and everybody seemed to like it. Between the Lines, it says a lot. Read between the lines. Everything is between the lines.
Yeah.
There are lots of hidden things between the lines. Or just look at the lines and says, this is it.
Yeah.
Between the Lines. And my podcast airs on a Sunday. I normally do it live on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook. Sunday from 1 to 1:30. That's where my shows are now. I will increase the amount of episodes. I will come back to increasing them, but right now they're just on Sundays from 1 to 1:30 my time, which is in Trinidad TT time. And I focus on communications now. Communication in relationships, communication in business, meaning in, you know, toxic relationships where you have to navigate them at work. So in other words, all what I have been through, you're getting
it's coming out now in the podcast form. I love it.
All that I have been through, you're getting my experience and helping you to navigate that life on a personal level. So if you need, you know, coaching, I do group coaching for persons in this type of relationship and they want to get out and they don't know how. And let me tell you something, Janica. I know we're coming to the close of time, but there are many people who commit suicide as a result of this. And I hope that, because they don't see a way out, and because it's the mind that they attack. Yeah, it's the mind that they go for, right? Which is worse. They always say if you're abused physically, it's one thing, but you see, once somebody attacks your mind, it's another thing, right? So if you need group coaching, if you need to know how to exit, you have children, and you need help to know how to navigate that life, I offer group coaching or even individual coaching. And it's not only about toxicity in relation, but also toxicity in the workplace, because these same beings go to work and you end up working with these same beings, okay? So you have to be able to navigate that. So I help in terms of that, because some people really having a hard time. And in terms of corporate, because I speak this on my podcast too, coming from a communications background, I help with the communication strategy, meaning knowing how to interact and interface with your stakeholders including internal, because they are your stakeholders, all your staff and everybody's working for you, as well as external. So in essence, it's treating people right, knowing how to speak to people, respect and honor them.
Love it.
Love all around.
That's so nice. That's so sweet. Thank you,
Thank
Corine,
you.
for being on the podcast and sharing so much with us today and such great insight. So appreciate it.
Thank you. It's a pleasure being here.
If you enjoyed the episode and would like to help support the show, please follow and subscribe. You can rate and review your feedback on any of our platforms listed in the description. I'd like to recognize our guests who are vulnerable and open to share their life experiences with us. Thank you for showing us we're human. Also, a thank you to our team who worked so hard behind the scenes to make it happen.
Lucas Piri.
Stefan Menzel.
The show would be nothing without you. I'm Jenica, host and writer of the show, and you're listening to Multispective.